here's what you need to know about the invasion of Venezuela by the United States. It's not going to happen. There's no reason to do it. Get that out of your head. For one, even though, yes, China is Venezuela's largest oil purchaser, the United States is Venezuela's largest trading partner. The reason for all this tension between Venezuela and the United States, it has nothing to do with fentanyl, it has nothing to do with gangs or cartels. That's just a cover. The real reason why the United States is threatening Venezuela is because of oil, but it's not Venezuela's. And I know everybody who doesn't know about oil loves to talk about how Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on the planet, and it's true. They have even more oil than Saudi Arabia. I mean, 303 billion barrels. Woo! But the problem for Venezuela is that their oil is crappy quality. It is heavy and it's sour, meaning that there is a limited range of uses for it as opposed to better quality oil like Saudi Arabia or even Russia and the United States, which can be light and sweet. In fact, it's not only just heavy, it's considered extra heavy. But another kicker is that it is very expensive to get out of the earth, as opposed to Saudi Arabia, where you can get some of the crude oil out with a shovel. So if it's not Venezuelan oil that America is angry over, whose is it? It's Guyana's, in the Essequibo region that Venezuela is threatening to annex. Why? Because their oil is light and sweet, and it's very easy to get out of the earth, unlike Caracas. Over the past decade or so, it's been discovered that at least 20 billion barrels of high-grade oil are in the Essequibo region of Guyana, and America has contracts on that oil, obviously. And because Venezuela's leadership can't do anything to generate actual economic production, they're just trying to take land for free and raise their economy that way. Now, Brazil has given Venezuela warnings, and they have even put a lot of their troops along the Venezuelan-Guyana border, but our president decided to say, no, we're going to really scare the crap out of Venezuela, and we're going to send over military personnel just waiting at the coast, just to give Venezuela that little warning that, hey, you try anything and we'll have 4,000 Marines and a whole bunch of firepower that you don't know how to deal with, even with those 4.5 million troops that you could not possibly logistically place all on the Guyanese border. But what about China? They're gonna swoop in and save the day for Venezuela. Yeah, is that right? China's been dealing with Venezuela for well over 20 years. In fact, they've been purchasing and investing in Venezuelan oil since 2006. When I say investing in Venezuelan oil, I just mean making sure that the oil flows stay stable, but nothing major, nothing really infrastructure related. You don't believe me? Let's just look at some devastating stats about Venezuelita. Remember, Venezuela's main export is crude oil and crude oil derivatives, as you can see in this little export table. Oh, and would you look at that, the Venezuelans are producing 1 million barrels of crude oil a day, as opposed to 400,000 during COVID. Woo! Let's just zoom out, compare their daily production to how much they used to produce before 2015. They were producing almost 3 million barrels a day. At any given time, they at least had 70 oil rigs working in the country, and they were at least exporting, let's say, $25 billion a year. That's not so bad. And the main reason for all that oil wealth was because America built that infrastructure with our petroleum companies, and they had a nice and rising GDP year on year, until, of course, they decided to fully nationalize and no longer cooperate with American interests. And take a look, since 2014, their GDP has dropped by almost 2/3, actually more. Now remember, China's been investing in Venezuela for over 20 years. Where does that show in Venezuela's economy? Maybe they slowed the complete crash of the Venezuelan oil economy, but that's all China did. And remember, America was heavily sanctioning Venezuela at that point. But where are America's opposing economies coming in to save the day? They didn't, because even Russia and China don't trust Venezuela with any major infrastructure investments. Remember the oil rig counts for Venezuela that I mentioned? Okay, they had at least 70 running when things were good. Now they have 2. Venezuela has 2 functional oil rigs now, at least according to the most recent data. Why didn't China or Russia invest in oil rigs for this country that apparently was so lucrative and potentially powerful? China has the Belt and Road Initiative. They have built ports, they build bridges and highways, and even if countries can't pay it back, China will continue to lend and build in these countries, but they will not do that to the extent of, let's say, Pakistan for Venezuela, just because China trusts the instability of Pakistan more than even Venezuela's. And don't get me wrong, China has loaned quite a bit, at least 60 billion to Venezuela. But again, It's just to buy the oil. And when it comes to China bucking America, when it comes to Venezuela, that's just not true. Because even this year, China stalled a lot of their oil imports from Venezuela just because our president threatened them with more sanctions. Now, I'll be one of the first people to say taco, 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 but the fact that China blinked first is surprising. And despite all of this, China only buys 500,000 barrels a day from Venezuela because they have a much cheaper source of oil right directly to their north, Russia. So I hate to burst anyone's bubble about Venezuela finally standing up to the United States or China making its first huge incursion into American interests with talking to Caracas. That's just not true. This is old news. I am the Geo Husar. I'm back from my vacation, and I will see you all on my live later tonight. Thanks for watching.